Welcome time. It is Thursday, the 5th of October 2023, and today's subject for our Thursday training time, or TTT or T3 or whatever. We haven't really figured out what to call this Thursday segment yet. But the topic for today is data protection officer. So, how to enhance your career as a data protection officer, or how to improve your career as a data protection officer. So let me go straight to the PowerPoint presentation that I've created for you. And there we are. DPO, or Data Protection Officer, is a career that has basically been created in the past 10 years or so. So if, 20 years ago you would have asked what's a data protection officer, I don't think anybody would have known. But with the advent of cybersecurity, data security, data privacy, and the European GDPR regulations and laws, the role of data protection officer has become more and more important. So, what is that job description? So, the primary role of the data protection officer is to ensure that the organization processes the personal data of its staff, its customers, its providers, or any other individuals, which in GDPR is referred to as data subjects, is in compliance with the applicable data protection rules and legislation. So, as a data protection officer, it is very wide. It encompasses everything within your organization that deals with data, personal data of every employee, customers, or provider that you deal with. So it's a really broad role, and it's a role that touches every part of the organization. So when we look at the objective of a role, of your role as a data protection officer, you need to serve as the main point of contact. So you're the main point of contact within the organization for all the staff members, for regulators, relevant public authorities on any issues relating to data protection, because you need to ensure that the company policies are in compliance with codes of practices, just like the GDPR that I mentioned before. But you also need to evaluate the existing data protection frameworks so that you can identify areas where there is no compliance or partial compliance, and you have your ongoing compliance improvement projects on the go. So the ongoing assessment, the risk assessment, or the data assessments, you need to be on top of that. And then you need to come up with training plans and provide data protection advice to other staff members, and also inform and advise data controllers or data processors on all matters in relation to data protection. So this role often resides within a large organization where you work with a team of data processors, you work with a team of compliance agents. So you have a whole team around you, because you need to promote a culture of data protection and compliance across all units of the organization. So not just in a small sliver of the company. But first things first, as I always say, what is the number one critical capability question you need to ask within your organization, or you need to remind your organization of? And that is, did you involve the data protection officer in your project? So, as I said in the previous slide, being a data protection officer means you have your tentacles in every bit of the organization. So every project that is run through the organization, every major task that is done, you need to be involved in that in some way, shape, or form. So you need to be aware of all the projects that are happening, and the projects need to share the data with you, and how they're using that data, and how they are safeguarding that data. So then that number one critical capability is very closely followed by the number two critical capability. Who is the controller of data processing, and how can the data protection officer, you, be reached. So you need to be a pivotal point within your organization. People need to know who you are, what you do, why you do the things that you do, and how they can get in touch with you whenever they need. So diving a little bit deeper into that last point of, do your employees, or in your case, your co-workers, do they know how to report a breach, for instance? And do they know who the data protection officer is? So they need to be able to get in touch with you in relation to policies. So is there a governance policy on how to deal with data breaches? The employees, like, you have a data protection officer, but do you have a team around you? Where do you fit within the functional organization? Who do you report to, and who reports up to you? Then you're maintaining and you're monitoring all the current protection. And as I said earlier, you need to provide ongoing risk benefit profiles. You need to maintain the data security, but you also need to assess ongoingly to what extent you comply, which is point 4, to what extent you comply with legal requirements regarding data protection. So all these, so policies, HR, monitoring, and compliance, all touched on in within your role, within your job, within your career. So some of the criteria that you need to master in order to enhance your career, in order to enhance and improve your role as data protection officer, and to really make it your own role, to really make it your own executive career within the organization, which means you need to have insight into acquiring new talent. So what is the strategy in relation to talent acquisition? Who do you get into your team, but also wider in the organization? Because the moment you talk about talent acquisition, you're talking about personal, very personal, identifiable data. So you need to have your finger in that pie as well. Is it possible to transform and reinvent your ways of working remotely? And how do your CFO or controllers do that? So what policies do you need to have in place to protect the data that is included and integral to a role of CFO or financial controller? So what policies and procedures do you have around that? Do you have policies regarding how long you need to be concerned when you talk about a time frame from a vulnerability to a data breach? What sort of time frames can you live with within your organization? What sort of time frames do you need to set in place where you have your monitoring and you have your almost like your go no go decision points? So these are things to think about on how to enhance your role and how to broaden the role within your organization. And then, of course, you need to have processes for triaging your incidents to identify actual breaches and activating the breach. So what processes and procedures do you need to activate once there is a data breach? Who do you need to inform? What needs to be done? And what timeframes are you working on at that particular point in time? And that goes back to one of the first slides where I said every project, every function, every unit within the organization needs to work with you to protect the data in your organization. So it really is a very broad and all-encompassing role. So other roles to collaborate with, for instance, the security manager, the incident manager, maybe you have a compliance officer, maybe you have a governance and quality management department. The CIO is a person to work with very closely. So there's a lot of roles you need to collaborate with on a daily or weekly basis. So then that assessment, so your data protection risk assessment and mitigation. So you need to know exactly where you comply with rules and regulations. Again, I'm linking it to GDPR because that's the most obvious one. Where do you comply? Where are the gaps in the processes? Where do you only have a partial compliance? So make sure you do a regular risk assessment. You have a schedule, and you have a person or a team responsible for this schedule of assessments. And with those assessments, make sure that when you ask the questions, that the people that participate in the assessment answer the questions with yes, we have clearly defined answers, or no, we do not have clearly defined answers, because that will really bring out the assumptions that people make around data protection and data compliance. So really try to uncover under the surface, the veneer that's across every organization, but try to scratch under that level of veneer to go, how confident are you that you have clearly defined answers to these questions? So that's what you need to uncover, or at least try to uncover. Now, I can understand when you think about this and you're listening to what I'm saying, you go like, oh, that's a lot of work and it's a big job. Do we even need a data protection officer in our organization? So I had a look at the European Commission website, and the company that needs to appoint a DPO is typically a larger organization. We're talking corporations, enterprises. An organization that at its core activities involve processing of sensitive data on a large scale, or it involves large scale, regular and systematic monitoring of individuals. So we're thinking hospitals, or large healthcare providers, insurance companies, those types of organizations where you are monitoring the behavior of individuals or personal identifiable data. So that will be the main driver for whether or not you need to appoint a DPO in your organization. With the caveat that public administrations always have an obligation to appoint a DPO, except for courts acting in their judicial capacity. So a lot of organizations need to think about employing a DPO, or when you are a data protection officer, you have a really broad range of industries that you can choose from, where you can add the most value to the organization. Now, where do I get all this information? As always, I go to our critical capabilities databases. In this case, the Data Protection Officer database. And I've looked at the highest scoring based on the Moscow score, the highest scoring critical capabilities with the potential answers or recommended guidances that you need to look into. And as of this week, we've actually made a little change to or not a little, it's a big change. It looks like a little change, but it's a big change. We made a big change to our critical capabilities database. And as you can see here on the right, there's a score. It says 12.87 at the moment. And basically that's a score for every critical capability on the left here that says questions, all the critical capabilities. You have potential answers. You have potential activities that you can implement in your organization. That's metrics, KPIs, tasks, targets, all that sort of stuff. So if you say, we evaluate the sustainability impact of data protection officers, the fact that we have a role in the organization, if that's a yes, then tick. If we maintain and monitor our current protection, specifically to data protection, then yes, tick. In this case, it's a no, so it's no tick. So for every tick, you get a scoring. So then on the right, you can see exactly how you score against the critical capabilities that you need to implement in your organization in relation to data protection. So in this case, I just clicked a number of the answers, and my score was 12.87. completely fictional because I did that for this presentation, but in your organization, that could be a really good, quick assessment of where you are in your data protection implementation in the organization. So that's the presentation for me for today. Thank you for tuning in again. And I will stop my screen sharing so that if you want to get access to the Data Protection Officer Critical Capability Database, go, I think it's here, could be there, but probably there. Go to that QR code that says Airtable Lite. That's the free version of our critical capability assessment, or not the assessment, but the database with all the capabilities and the recommended guidelines and the answers, so that you can do your own score to see where you are in the overall process of data protection and your own role, your own career as a data protection officer. And as always, if you have questions about the critical capability databases, if you have questions about any of our data expert courses, our programs, our certification programs, email me at ivanka.menken, that's me, ivanka.menken at theartofservice.com. So thank you very much for watching this video again, and I will see you next week at the Thursday training time at 12 o'clock Queensland time. I'll see you then. Bye for now.